I have been married to my husband for 41 years. My father and his father were war buddies, so he and I knew each other from a very young age. We occasionally had arguments, but we lived a very happy life. When he was 65 years old, he had a rare form of cancer. We tried all kinds of treatments, but they didn't stop the cancer from spreading. There was nothing better we could do, we did what we had to do. We continued to love each other until the day he died. I will never forget what he said to me that day. He was lying in bed and his family was gathered around him. He said that he was going home and would see me again. I kept holding his hand, and when his hand became soft, I knew he was gone. I remember the doctor putting him in a body bag. Drove him to the funeral home. I went to bed that night cursing God for taking the love of my life away from me. I cried so much. My life became dark and life lost its meaning. And so it went on for a month. I stopped eating regularly, I stopped exercising every day, and all I wanted to do was be with my husband. I became so depressed that I barely talked to my kids. Everything in the house reminded me of him, and my health was getting worse and worse. I continued to curse God for taking my husband away from me. After another month, I gathered the courage to walk out of the house to the park where my husband and I used to go. There was a large lake in the park with a row of seats on the edge. My husband and I used to sit on the chairs and talk. It took me a long time to get here, because I now felt like I was struggling to walk. When I was almost to the seats, I saw someone sitting there. As I walked there, the person disappeared again. I sighed and wiped a tear from my eye. Thinking back on many things from the past made me feel even more alone. When I turned my head, I saw the man standing by the lake again. I rubbed my eyes and I thought to myself, what the hell is going on here? I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my chest. So painful that I couldn't stand up. I fell to the ground and I could smell the dirt. Then, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I saw a light. It pulled me in like a tornado. But it didn't cause any damage. I didn't know where it was taking me, only that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape. I went through a tunnel, and finally, I got to the other side. I felt a very strong sense of love in this place. There are no words to describe this feeling. I heard someone talking, and it turned out to be my own voice. I heard myself cursing God over and over again. I was surprised that I was still a religious person to say such vicious words. I grew up going to church a lot because my father was a pastor. I also heard what I said to my husband during the argument, and I heard what I said to my children. The volume was amplified hundreds of times, louder and more powerful than when I said it. When the words became too much for me to bear, I prayed to God for His forgiveness. Within a few moments, the voices immediately disappeared. I found myself standing at the bottom of a throne. The light was so bright. As my eyes slowly adjusted, I could see the person sitting on the throne, but only a blurred outline was visible. The person sitting on the throne began to speak. I have heard your curse on me. I brought you here so that you could vent these resentments. Now I feel very afraid. I confess that I said those things. I feel that you took my husband away from me. He was my life and soul, he was everything to me. You took that away from me. You were right, I brought him home. His time on earth is over because she has done everything she wanted to do in her life. What do you mean he finished everything he wanted to do? I asked. In his life, he wanted to do two things. He wanted to marry his soul mate and he wanted to raise his children with the person he loved the most. The person he loves the most is also you. I couldn't wait to ask God. Is he here? God answered, yes. Can I see him one last time? It seemed like a long time before I got an affirmative answer. You can see him again. God took me on a tour of heaven. We came to the lake, which was the clearest and most beautiful lake I had ever seen. He led me through the pastures. Every place he took me was too beautiful to describe in human terms. Everyone had a place here, and we came to the place he had prepared for my husband and me. It looked exactly like our house on earth. At the back of the house, I saw my husband, who was watering the flowers. God said gently, "Go and talk to him." I walked up to my husband and he didn't notice me. I called out his name, and he turned his head toward me, a puzzled expression appearing on his face. He asked, "Why are you here? Your time is not up yet." I replied, "I don't know what's going on or why I'm here." "Now you can't be here yet, you have to go back," he said sternly. I replied again, "I miss you and life without you means nothing." He said, "You have to do this, for the sake of our children. They need you. We will see each other again, we will be together forever." He kissed me gently on the cheek. I don't know how long it took for me to regain consciousness. I passed out at the edge of the lake in the park. A park ranger ran over and helped me up. "Are you okay, old-timer?" "Yes, I am fine." How long had I been unconscious? About 2 minutes. That's impossible, I thought to myself. I feel like I've been talking to God and my husband for a long time. The administrator said, "Do you need to call an ambulance?" I said, "No need." I walked home by myself. It took me a few months to adjust myself and eventually get back to a healthy routine. These past 5 years have not been easy for me. With every birthday, I tell myself that I don't have much time left. I just hope my husband won't be mad at me for waiting too long. I always believe that my husband is waiting for me in heaven. I will see him again in the near future. And then be with him forever. In August of 2011, my father fell and injured himself at home. My husband and I decided to take my father into our care. Although we were in a very tight financial situation at that time, we felt that family was more important than anything else and could not leave my father alone to face difficulties. Although he did not have any broken bones, he suffered injuries to his back and arms and needed regular medication and rest. On the way home, my husband and I discussed how we could arrange our time so that my father could be better cared for. We finally decided that I would take a month off work to stay home and take care of my father. It was a very difficult time for us, and we had to keep a tight rein on expenses. I also had to take care of the children's school and life. Although I felt very tired at times, I knew that this was what we should do. My husband and I always encouraged my father to face life positively and keep a positive attitude. One morning, I was going to the hospital to buy painkillers for my father. I arrived at the hospital quickly. I purchased the painkillers at the hospital. At the supermarket, I bought some more food and daily necessities. But on the way home, an accident happened. A car broke down and stopped on the highway. The car in front of me started to slow down. I put my foot on the brake and slowly started to slow down as well. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw a large truck approaching me. The truck was going very fast and I was very scared. I tried to move to the left, but it was too late. At the moment the truck hit me, time seemed to stop. Suddenly, I began to feel a special feeling, a feeling of being surrounded by love. This feeling became stronger and stronger. My panic had been replaced by love. I felt embraced in a way that I had never felt since I was a child. Imagine someone who loves you deeply. Now multiply that feeling by a factor of 10,000 and maybe you can feel that feeling. At the time I felt this love. I also felt a powerful energy around me. I can't describe the form, but I felt that this was God. I know that He loves me deeply. No matter what I do, He will always love me. A very peculiar connection was established between me and God. In that moment, there was no separation between me and God. I knew that I was accepted by God. When I saw God, I felt an overwhelming shock in my heart. When He spoke to me, I heard the most pleasing voice in the universe. It was a voice that could heal the heart. The look in His eyes made me feel safer and warmer than ever before. All my worries and pains disappeared in this moment. He helped me look back on my past life. I saw the good things I had done and the mistakes I had made. Once I got into an argument with a close friend and I said something extremely mean and hurtful. When I look back on that moment, I feel a great heaviness in my heart because I realized that I had caused him harm. God did not rebuke me. He said, "My child, I know your heart. But you must know that I love you, and I will always love you, no matter what mistakes you have made." I felt a strength that I had never felt before welling up inside me, making me believe that I could be better. I got the answer in His eyes that punishing myself did not make me better. When the life review was over, He explained to me my mission on earth. I was amazed after hearing His words. All of us are very important to God. He told me that everyone's life on earth would be different and that anyone's life experience is very important. I asked Him, "Why do I have such a father? I didn't have a happy childhood," and He told me, "You have to experience something to learn to grow and move on to the next job." I understood that the earth is like a school. When we finish school, we all have to take a final exam. That is, a review of each person's life, and then we can graduate and go home. Everything becomes so meaningful. I began to understand the meaning of life. Life is not a simple journey, but a journey full of challenges and growth. During this journey, we must experience many difficulties and setbacks in order to become better people. These experiences make us who we are, and it is this growth and change that makes our lives meaningful. The meaning of life is not in what we have, but in what kind of person we become. Only then can we become better people and win inner peace and happiness. Here, I also met the relatives who passed away. They all looked very young. They were all wearing a white robe that looked very comfortable and soft. This robe seems to be made of some special material. The robe gave off a soft glow, making them look even more special. Everyone was smiling and looked very happy and content. I saw my grandmother. She was smiling and walking towards me. She looked so young and beautiful. Her dress was embroidered with a beautiful rose that looked like it had been sewn by hand. I also saw my grandfather, who looked like a gentleman. He was holding a thick book in his hand. I could feel that he was very peaceful and calm inside. Beside them, there were some other people. I couldn't identify them, but I could feel their love and peace. They all had a unique light in them that made me feel completely included and accepted. In this place, I felt at home. Their eyes were filled with tenderness and love. The light from them illuminated the space around them and made me feel very calm and relaxed. They were so real, it was as if they were always there for me, separated only by an invisible barrier. Seeing their current state, I knew they were better off than before. When I met my grandfather, I felt very guilty inside. He had died of a sudden heart attack and I hadn't had a chance to say goodbye to him. I remember my grandfather as a kind man who was always able to answer my questions. During the time he was about to leave, my relationship with my family became strained. My grandfather smiled at me and I felt his love and comfort. I said to my grandfather that I regretted not spending more time with you before you passed away and I was sorry. Grandfather put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, you have to understand that we look at relationships differently here than we do on earth. Here, we focus only on the spiritual level of love and respect." My grandfather's words touched my heart so deeply that tears began to well up in my eyes. Grandfather also told me many things about heaven. In this moment, I felt a deep sense of peace and happiness. Although his time on earth had ended, our love and relationship would always continue. My grandfather also told me that the most important thing in this world is love. Love is not only a feeling, but also an action. He told me that in heaven, all people love each other and there is no negativity, only peace and joy. He said that the most important thing in this world is to learn tolerance and understanding to love yourself and those around you. I know that I have done many wrong things and hurt my family and friends, but I also know that there is still a chance for me to change. Our conversation made me re-examine myself and made me appreciate life more to try to be a better person. My grandfather gently patted my hand and said he always loved me too. Finally, God asked me, "Do you want to stay or go back?" Although I was very eager to stay here, I knew I had to go back. I didn't want to leave my life with regrets. So, very reluctantly, I replied, as much as I wanted to stay, I knew I had to go back. God gave me a warm hug. I felt his love, and it made me even more determined. I said goodbye to my grandfather and the rest of my family. They walked me to the door of heaven. Grandfather took my hand again and he said, "Remember, we are with you whenever you are." I shed tears and expressed my love and gratitude to him and the rest of my family. Finally, I turned to God and said goodbye. He smiled and said, "I will always love you, wherever you are. I will always be there for you when you need me." I thanked him and then turned and left heaven. Suddenly, I was back in the real world. My hand was still clutching the steering wheel. In the back of my mind, a voice appeared. It told me to take my foot off the brake and push the gas pedal to the floor. I didn't understand it at first, but as the voice grew stronger, I began to act on the instructions. Then, I hit the car in front of me, and it traveled forward some distance with its inertia. The big truck behind me also stopped. I sat in the driver's seat and kept my arms around myself, because I didn't want to lose the love of God. I hoped it would give me strength and courage. I didn't know how long it would take for the doctor to arrive on the scene, and the wait seemed long. My mood became more and more anxious. As the doctor opened the car door, I felt God's love begin to fade away. The doctor began to examine my body, and he was surprised to find that I hadn't suffered any injuries. I was also very surprised. I wanted to tell the doctor about what I had experienced, but I could not put them into words. It was clear to me that God had been watching over me. After going through that car accident, I have a different perspective on life. I knew my mission on earth and decided to appreciate every moment of my life more. I put a picture of myself above my bed and remind myself every morning that I am a child of God. This gives me the strength and courage to face the challenges in my life. When I am in a difficult situation, I stop and think about what to do next, because I don't want to hurt anyone else. Although I'm not perfect, I try really hard to do the right thing. In the year after the accident, I experienced a lot of difficulty and pain. I often wondered why I stayed in this world. But, looking back on that experience, I learned a lot. When I see the sunlight coming through the clouds, sometimes I really want to go back there. I believe God is the light, and He keeps reminding me to remember how much He loves me, and that I will never be alone. One day, I will return to Him forever. Until I get back there, life becomes a lot easier by seeing every difficulty as an adventure.